Hey everybody, it's Ramit Sethi here from Earn 1K. Today we are on Module 2, Lesson 3. Pricing. We have reached one of the promised lands. Now, you'll notice that when most people think about starting to earn money on the side, one of the first things they want to talk incessantly about is pricing. How much do I charge? What should I charge? How should I accept payment? Oh my God, should I use PayPal? These are the same people that automatically want to jump into discussing outreach strategies, tactics like Facebook pages or Twitter, or even what emails they should send down to the level of what the subject line should read. Now, as you've learned over the past few modules, that's jumping the gun a little bit too soon. We've spent the last few modules intentionally going over high-level strategy concepts like how to get in your customer's head, along with specific feedback and examples. Because when you do that, when you really understand who your customer is and what they want, you can charge a ridiculous rate compared to other people who will never understand their customer because they don't spend a week or two doing it. And they'll just try to, quote, get it out there. They'll try to put it out there, see what sticks. These are phrases that they use. And they'll inevitably get frustrated and give up. Okay? Not you, because you've spent the last few modules getting in the heads of your customers, developing your service offering, and knowing what you're going to offer your clients that they will pay for. So today, we're going to talk about pricing. Now, one strategy that we use in the Earn 1K course is that we simply don't entertain hours and hours of debate about something. The point with earning your first $1,000 is to pick something and test it, not to debate it endlessly. So that's the same strategy we're going to use with pricing. Today we're going to talk about pricing models, and we're even going to have specific numbers as to what your price could be. Okay? Now, later we're going to be talking about how to raise your rates. So don't worry too much if your initial rate isn't the dream rate. We'll show you how to get there. But I want to emphasize one thing, and that is that the point of pricing, especially pricing right now, is not to optimize your pricing. Let me say that again. The point right now is not to optimize your pricing. It's to get 3 paying clients. In other words, if you really believe for some reason that you deserve to make $50 an hour, don't be dissatisfied if you start off with 3 paying clients paying you $20 an hour, because the point is not to get to 50 right now. The point is just to get those 3 paying clients so you can validate your service offering, and then you can work to raise your rates. We're going to show you how to do all of that. So let's dig in. The first thing to understand is pricing models, and I want to go into each of these pricing models right now just for a second because they're really useful to understand. The first is hourly. Most of us understand this. You charge an hourly rate, your client pays you. Now, the benefit of this from the client's perspective is that I kind of mitigate my risk. If I'm the client and you're the freelancer, if I don't like what you're doing, I can just stop paying you. Right there, I have no other obligation at all. Okay? That's a nice thing. Plus, it's nice for you because there are kind of industry standards or industry norms of what hourly rates are. Now, of course, there are outliers. There are people charging over $1,000 an hour. There are people doing it for free, but there are fairly well understood numbers. And in fact, we're going to give you some of those later on tonight. By project. This is answers by project. So I'll say, for example, I want you to implement this email marketing campaign, and this is the project fee. And you know exactly what you're going to get paid for implementing this project. You have specific measurables and deliverables. And if, as you get more skilled as a freelancer, you'll be able to estimate. Retainer is another one. So I have recently been asked to be able to have access to me at any given time during a month. So that's a nice thing if your client just wants access to you to be able to bounce some ideas off. Typically this happens as you get deeply embedded within an organization. Commission or bonus, this can work in conjunction with all the other ones. As you know from the Earn 1K material, I paid out a $25,000 bonus to one of my freelancers, and I'll certainly pay out even higher bonuses later on. That's nice, especially if you can turn it into an incentive bonus, because it gives you an incentive to work, and clients are typically very happy to pay a percentage of money that you helped bring in. Finally, value-based is just a general type of pricing model here saying, look, yes, I may be writing you one sales page, but this sales page is going to generate $200,000 of revenue for you. So it makes sense to pay for value and pay me $15,000 for that. Okay? And there are a lot of copywriters that charge $15,000 for a sales page. So at this stage, for example, I would probably be willing to pay someone $10,000, maybe even $15,000 for a sales page because it makes sense. In the early days, I would never have paid that much. So what do? You know all these pricing models. How should you actually apply it to your business? We recommend you start with an hourly rate, flat. That's just our recommendation, and here's why we think it's useful. Okay, first of all, clients get it. It's well understood in the industry, as I said, and you have to understand your client's fears, right? I've talked about fears, hopes, and dreams. Well, one of the fears that I have as a client is you're going to slap me with a big fat project fee, especially as a new freelancer I've never worked with. Well, if I pay you by the hour, I can get frequent updates and I can pull the plug anytime I want. It keeps things simple. As a beginning freelancer, you may not be experienced enough to properly estimate your project fees. So a lot of freelancers get into this problem where they'll say, oh yeah, I'll do that project for $2,000, and it ends up taking them, 2 months, and if they actually run the numbers, they're getting paid something like $4 an hour. Right? We don't want that to happen to you, especially upfront. I talked about reducing risk. Again, this is simple getting into your customers' heads. When you know what they fear, you know how you can create a solution to get around that. So we recommend an hourly rate. And I want to say that it's important not to stress over the number. Remember that I talked about having this dream of $50 an hour, but getting dissatisfied for only charging 15 or 20. I just want to emphasize this because it's so important. Let's say that others are charging $15 an hour, okay? We're going to talk about how you should use that market data for your pricing, but you can always niche it down further, offer better solutions, better reliability, better all kinds of value to your client, and then you'll be able to charge more. But don't worry too much about the actual rate. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but so many people get hung up on the rate and forget that pricing is just a small part of their business. Okay? Let's actually look at some of these objections. If I charge too much, won't I lose some sales? Yes, it's possible. So I lose a lot of sales because I charge a ridiculous rate. That's okay. They're not the right clients for me. Here's one of the common things that can happen. So, you can charge too much and you'll lose sales. That's possible. It's okay as long as you're getting enough sales to cover your needs. However, you can also charge too little and then get stuck with people who are never going to pay you more. And you really start thinking of yourself as someone who's only worth $10 an hour. One of the things that we suggest is to start with a fairly standard rate. And we wrote a lower rate here, a standard rate. But make it clear to your clients that you're giving them a special offer and that you intend to get your market rate later. But as a favor to them, you're going to give them a lower rate. That's a good way to go about it. I've done that myself. If I charge too little, won't I get commoditized and end up competing with people charging $3 an hour? Yes. Do not get into a pricing war. So you will actually see this. If you look online, especially for rookies, people that don't know anything about earning more. These are people who are typically blogger commenters, right? Blog commenters. They just say what's on their mind and don't necessarily have anything backing it up. They'll say, well, why don't you just charge less? Like $50 an hour is just too much. Oh, thank you very much for your insightful comments. Charging less to try to get more clients is typically one of the worst moves you can make. I'll tell you why. It's for a number of reasons. First of all, you get really bad clients. People who are only price sensitive are the worst clients. Okay. Also, as I said earlier, you start thinking of yourself as being worth $10 an hour. It becomes very difficult to actually get out of that rut. Okay. So I've given this example earlier about when I tried to negotiate with these guys selling T-shirts at the ethnic market. The T-shirt cost 20 bucks. How come the guy won't sell it, and it only costs him $3 to make, so he's got a $17 profit. I offer the guy $5. Why doesn't he give it to me? He's almost doubling his money. One of the reasons is that he knows if he sells it to me for $5, it's going to be hard to justify charging $20, especially when other people around him know that he's the $5 T-shirt guy. So you do not want to get into a pricing war. You simply want to try to, at first, get 3 paying clients, and then later add value so you can justify a higher fee. As we talk about here, we're going to talk about how to pitch correctly. All the things you've done until this point in terms of getting in your customer's head make it so much easier for you to charge a higher rate. Just compare yourself to people in your market who have never done the work that you've done to understand their customers. They're going to come out with a half-assed pitch. They're not going to know the right keywords to use. They're not going to know what to address. What do their customers actually want? They're just going to throw out what's in their head. It took them 5 minutes to write in Microsoft Word. You have spent the time, so you really know the pressure points for your clients. And as a result, you're going to be able to charge higher rates. Okay? It's happened for me. I've paid really high rates to people because they knew exactly what I hoped, feared, and dreamed. And by the same token, people pay me over $1,000 an hour. Same reason. Okay, here's a question you might be wondering. What should you charge? Now, by the way, if you think that the next slide is going to have a specific answer for you, you have another thing coming. But that's not true. I actually will give you some specific numbers, okay? Let's take a look here. There are no rules. All right, you didn't want to hear that, I know. Okay, we've got 3 actual methods for you to figure out what you should charge. The first we call D30, and this stands for drop 3 zeros. And this is a simple one. If you make $40,000 as your salary, just drop the 3 zeros and $40 an hour. Boom. Or as we write, bam. That's your rate. Why? Why does that number work? Typically, to find out your number, you also want to divide it by 2, so it would become $20 an hour. But that's for employees. That's your hourly rate. That's a cool little trick we know, right? So if you make $40,000 a year, you make $20 an hour, roughly. But as a freelancer, the clients don't have to pay taxes and benefits. In fact, you may have to cover some of your own materials or transportation costs, things like that. So you're going to add a little bit of extra fee. That's well understood in the industry. Well understood, okay? As a client, I know that I'm going to have to pay you a higher hourly rate because I'm getting more convenience. So this is D30, drop 3 zeros. Simple method. And as we write here, don't expect to make $150 an hour as a new person in the field. It's interesting, by the way, how delusional we get about the rate that we're going to charge. Let me actually show you that in the next example. The next one is to double your resentment number. So what is your resentment number? Your resentment number is the lowest rate you'd normally accept for work without feeling resentment. So for example, let's say that you're going to tutor somebody applying to college, okay, or somebody for their SATs. What's the lowest rate? You would feel resentment if you had to do that for $10 an hour. But $25 an hour, okay, you'll do it. But you wouldn't do it for any less than that. Now, I want to just be really careful about the double your resentment strategy because it's not very good for beginners, okay? Here's why. The truth is, you're probably delusional about how much you should charge, okay? And I know because I have been very, very delusional in my day, and I probably still am a little delusional. I remember when I started a company once, we grew it a little bit, and all of a sudden we had some people talking to us about potentially buying the company, and we were completely delusional about how much it was worth. Completely delusional. We came up with a number out of thin air. We actually met with somebody, and he said, "So what do you guys think? Any numbers in your head?" And we kind of danced around the subject, but ultimately we got down to a number, and he literally laughed. And he's a very, very experienced entrepreneur who's been very successful. And he said, "How'd you guys come to that number?" And if you had been watching the meeting, it would have been comical because we really had no justification. We just said, "Yeah, that's what we're worth. We think that that would be a nice number. We could brag to our friends about it." Of course, it had no basis in reality. Now, your resentment number is probably equally delusional. You may say, "Oh, I wouldn't tutor someone for less than $25 an hour." The truth is, you may need to do that, especially at first, to get your first 3 paying clients. So I strongly encourage you not to do this at first because you don't know your resentment number. After you get 3, 4, 5 paying clients, you're going to have a much better idea about what your real resentment number is. So I simply wanted to put this out there just so you know it is one tool in your toolbox, but I strongly encourage you not to think too much about this one right now. Okay, method 3. I really like this one. When in doubt, do what the next guy does. As you've learned so far in Earn 1K, you don't need to have the most genius idea. You simply need to execute better than the next person. Okay? Now, the nice thing about finding out the going rate is that it's very easy to find out what the going rate is. You can do some research, and in a few hours you can figure this out. Now, as we write here, freelancers don't typically like to hear this. They think, charge what you think you're worth and forget about the competition. But the truth is, as a client, I'm well aware of what the market bears, okay? So for example, I very recently have had to hire someone to do something to help out with one of the projects that I'm working on. And I had two different freelancers charging two different prices. And I'm talking a difference of about 100%. Now, I know what the market will bear, and I know the quality of both of these freelancers. Assuming that they're both roughly equal, why would I pay double the price? I just wouldn't. It doesn't make any sense. So assume that your clients are savvy, and that means you need to get savvy about what the market is charging. Now, how do you do that? It's very simple. Ask your friends or colleagues, Google your average hourly rate. For example, designer average hourly rate. You can find this in about an hour or two. You'll have a pretty good sense of what people are charging. Okay? You also want to remember that there is no one number. As a beginner, frankly, you're going to have to charge a little bit less. That's fine. As you get more experienced, as you have more testimonials that prove you are amazing, as you have more portfolio entries for whatever you do, copywriting, tutoring, anything, you'll be able to charge more. We'll talk about raising our rates later. Don't worry too much. All right, so you wanted to know some simple numbers. Here are some simple recommended numbers. If you're doing writing or editing, $30 an hour, basic. Design, $40 an hour. Technical roles or programming, $50 an hour. Now, a lot of you are actually going to be throwing your hands up in the air and cursing me. Well, that's a normal thing. I think a lot of people actually curse me on a daily basis. But you may be cursing me as you're listening to my voice, which is a very odd and haunting thing to think about. Anyway, you're cursing me because you're saying, Ramit, these numbers are way too low. Okay, that's fine. I've actually paid freelancers more than $60 an hour for writing and editing, but you're not going to get very far if you start out of the gate charging $60 an hour, okay? Especially when you're not sure if your price has been validated. Again, what's the point of today? The point is to get 3 paying clients, not to optimize the actual price. Now, as we say here, it can depend a lot, but these are numbers to start with. And we like to use this thing. My standard rate may be $50, but I really like your project, so I can start with you for $30, and after a month or two of work, actually don't say a month or two, after a month of work, I want to regroup, and if I've done extraordinary work, then I want to discuss going up to my standard rate. That's a very compelling pitch for a client. Okay? Look here. Don't spend more than 30 minutes thinking about this. Pick something, and instead of wasting time debating it and running calculations as to how much you could make, spend your time testing and validating it with your market. Okay? You've already seen the power of that before. Do it with pricing as well. Let's go to the big picture. Let's take a look at this. If it seems like the number that you picked is going to be too low, it may seem like you'll never be able to reach your long-term goals of $1,000 and more. But ultimately, you have to remember not to get discouraged. Pricing is just a very, very small part of this. I cannot emphasize it enough. Okay? Your goal isn't to make 50K in a year. It's to make 3 paying clients and then tune it. Turn that tune up. Now, I'm actually going to show you a lot of really cool stuff about building a tuner process. So don't worry too much. You will make more later. The important thing, and this is a profound point, it's to start finding work at $15 or $20 or $30 an hour before moving up. Okay, this is very, very important. When I hire people, especially when I hired people before at my startup, I would talk about big wins and quick wins. Now, big wins are very, very important. You need to get some big wins that really move the needle, or move the dial, as we say. But quick wins are equally important. It's important to show yourself that you can get quick wins. And a quick win would be getting 1 or 2 paying clients. Okay? As you have a larger pool of clients, you're going to be able to have more people that you can actually test your pricing and service offerings on. All right, so here's an action step. Pick a standard hourly rate to charge clients. Okay, we talked about how to do that. There are 3 different techniques you can use. I really like number 3, looking at the market, seeing what people are charging, and then picking something right around there or slightly higher. Okay, that covers pricing. Now, later on, we're going to talk about upselling. We're going to talk about how to raise your rates. We're going to talk about even further targeting with your clients, so that as you get deeper and deeper into their head and deeper into their organization, you can identify different ways to help them, which also equals different ways to charge them more. Which, by the way, they will love to pay you because they know that you're good. Okay? So that's your action step for today in terms of pricing. Now let me just, I want to focus on this part also. In the next step as to what's coming, we're going to talk about generating prospects. You've got your pricing, you're going to have a rough number, a ballpark number as to what's coming. That is good. That's really good. Now you're going to need to know how to actually get people to come into your sales funnel so that you can actually turn this pricing into a test. Now I have a couple things here that I want to say in terms of like pricing as a big picture, because that's the actual step that we're in now. I'm going to leave this screen blank because I just want you to listen. The goal of today and your pricing is to find a number that works before you give up. Okay? I have to be realistic with you. When people start blogs, the biggest problem they have is not SEO strategy or monetization or their opt-in list conversion rates. It is simply getting to month 3 or month 6 before they give up, because the vast majority of bloggers do give up. Okay? The same thing is true of pricing and your freelance business as a whole. It's so important to get some quick wins before you give up. And that's why even charging a little bit less than your dream number is okay, because there's nothing more powerful than getting feedback from the market that's paying you. Okay? Remember, most people fail because they give up, not because they haven't fully optimized their pricing. Let me say that again. Most people fail because they give up, not because they haven't optimized their pricing. Now, trust me about one thing. If you have 5, 10, 15 clients paying you $20 an hour, you will have no problem getting to $40 an hour or even $60 an hour. Okay? Think about it like that. Think about testing your pricing rather than worrying about the actual number. And with that, I'm going to conclude today's lesson on pricing, and I will talk to you soon.